It began as an ordinary day, one that quickly spiraled into the kind of nightmare you only read about in online forums or hear whispered in dark corners. My name is Anna, and I never believed in the supernatural until I encountered the entity that now haunts me. This is my story, one I hope will serve as a warning to those who are tempted to explore the unknown. A few months ago, I moved into a small, unassuming house on the edge of a quiet town. The rent was cheap, and the neighborhood seemed pleasant. As a freelance writer, I thought the solitude would help me focus on my work. Little did I know that this house had a history, a dark and unsettling one. The previous tenant, an elderly man named Mr. Whitaker, had disappeared without a trace. The landlord, a cheerful yet evasive middle-aged woman, assured me that everything had been investigated and that the house was safe. "He was just a lonely old man," she said. "Sometimes they wander off." Despite her reassurances, the house felt off from the very beginning. It wasn't the creaks or the drafts that unsettled me, it was the oppressive silence, the kind that makes you feel like you're being watched. It started with small things. Doors that I swore I had closed were suddenly open, lights flickering at odd times, and objects moving from their original places. At first, I dismissed these occurrences as forgetfulness or electrical issues. But one night, as I worked late into the night on a deadline, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I was sitting at my desk, typing away, when I heard the faint sound of footsteps upstairs. My heart skipped a beat. I lived alone. Grabbing a flashlight, I cautiously ascended the stairs. The noise led me to the attic door, which was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, my hands trembling. The attic was empty, but the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. As I turned to leave, the flashlight flickered, and for a brief moment, I saw a shadow in the corner. It wasn't mine. Before I could react, the light steadied, and the shadow was gone. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, but the events escalated. One morning, I found strange symbols etched into the wooden floor of the attic. They were crude and jagged, as if someone had carved them in a hurry. Desperate for answers, I visited the local library and dug into the house's history. What I found sent chills down my spine. Decades ago, the house had been the site of a series of mysterious disappearances. The townsfolk whispered about a malevolent presence, something they called the Forgotten Shadow. According to legend, it preyed on those who were alone, feeding on their fear until they vanished without a trace. Knowing the house's history only made things worse. I became paranoid, jumping at every sound. The shadow grew bolder, appearing in mirrors, lurking in corners, and whispering my name when I was on the brink of sleep. I stopped working, stopped eating, and barely left my room. One night I woke up to find the shadow at the foot of my bed. It was more defined now, almost human in shape, but its eyes were voids of darkness. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. It leaned closer and whispered, "You can't escape." That's when I decided to leave. I packed my essentials and fled to a motel on the other side of town. But the shadow followed. It appeared in the motel mirror, etched its symbols into the walls, and invaded my dreams. I realized there was no escaping it. Desperate, I reached out to a paranormal investigator I found online. His name was Marcus, and he specialized in cases like mine. When he arrived, he immediately sensed the malevolence in the house. Using an array of strange tools and rituals, he attempted to banish the shadow. For hours the house shook and unearthly screams echoed through the walls. When it was over, Marcus looked at me with a grim expression. "It's bound to you now," he said. "The only way to free you as self is to confront it." With Marcus's guidance, I returned to the house for one final showdown. Armed with nothing but a candle and my resolve, I entered the attic where it all began. The shadow was waiting, its form more menacing than ever. "Why me?" I demanded, my voice trembling. It didn't respond, but its presence grew heavier. I recited the incantation Marcus had given me, pouring every ounce of strength into the words. The shadow writhed and shrieked, its form dissipating like smoke in the wind. The house is quiet now, but I know the shadow isn't truly gone. It's weakened, hiding, waiting for another victim. As for me, I've learned to live with the lingering fear. If you ever find yourself in a house that feels wrong, trust your instincts. Some things are better left forgotten.